Well, welcome everyone to the Baker and Taylor's Digital Dish, where we talk about fantastic digital resources that Baker and Taylor has that make your library life easier. Today, we're going to be talking specifically about Boundless Kids and Teens and how it can become the place for kids and teens in your community to access ebooks, e-audio, and video books all in one place. You'll come away with ideas on how to use the Resources Hub feature for in-library programming, as well as how homeschoolers, parents, teachers, and kids and teens can use the Resource Hub to its fullest potential. And I'm going to put our pictures up here. Hi, I'm Sarah Shepard. I'm the CATS Children's and Teen Services Manager for the Western United States, which is all of the states west of the Mississippi River, plus Illinois, Michigan, and Wisconsin. I'm proud to have gotten the chance to work at Houston Public Library for 14 years, working my way up through youth services before coming over to Baker and Taylor. I have my MLS and youth services certificate from the University of North Texas. I still live in Houston, Texas with my husband, my 5-year-old daughter, Vivian, and I have 2 cats named Duncan and Long Noodles. Vivian named Long Noodles, and 2 dogs, Peso and Lucy. And then we have a couple pictures up here. That's my family at Halloween. And then my daughter with the Sanderson sisters at the Texas Renaissance Festival. Joining me also from the CATS team is Grace LaRochelle. Hey, Grace.
Hi, I'm Grace LaRochelle, and I'm the Children's and Teen Manager on the eastern half of the country, Sarah's counterpart. I'm also an MLIS degree librarian from Valdosta State University, and I was in public libraries for about 10 years before coming over here to Baker and Taylor. In New Hampshire and Massachusetts, both. I was a children's librarian and ran children's departments, and then I was a branch manager at Springfield City Library in Massachusetts for a few years before I popped over to Baker and Taylor. And now I get to do fantastic work with librarians on the eastern half of the country here on the CATS team. As you can see from my pictures, I'm a big Holly Black fan. That's me with Holly Black. Tears were definitely streaming down my face as she's my favorite author of all time. And now I live in Maine, and I love to visit the beach and visit Portland as often as I can because of all the fantastic restaurants they have.
Awesome. All right. So before we introduce our guests from Barefoot Books, I just wanted to start us off. So if you aren't familiar with Boundless Kids and Teens, what it is it's a virtual place where kids and teens can go to access books, ebooks, videos, all in one place. One of the things that makes Boundless Kids and Teens super special is that we have partners from a lot of different publishers and content providers, and they all bring something different to the table. So today we're talking with folks from Barefoot Books, and we have representing Barefoot Books, Rachel Salmons and John Snyder, and author Mia Wenjen. So Rachel, hi Rachel.
Hi, how's it going? My name is Rachel. I am the Trade Marketing Associate at Barefoot Books. I've been here for a little over 3 years. I started publishing at a small publisher in Florida, and then moved over to Barefoot Books to work with children's books. So yeah, very excited to be here. I live in Boston, and I'm with my coworker here, John.
Hi there, I'm John Snyder. I am the sales associate at Barefoot Books, where I focus on the education and library market. So speaking with librarians and teachers, as well as their suppliers every single day. I have a background, master's in publishing, as well as experience in academic publishing, so selling to university librarians. And then I was also a book publicist where I focused a lot on the library trade outlets. And now I just started here this past July. So still a little bit newer, but loving Barefoot.
Yeah, and we're so excited to have our author, Mia Wenjen. Hi, Mia, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mia Wenjen. I started blogging in 2009 as a children's book blogger at pragmaticmom.com. And then a few years after that, I started a nonprofit, Multicultural Children's Book Day. And we'll be celebrating our 11th celebration this coming January, just around the corner. And we give away free diverse books for anyone who wants to review. And the sign up is now. It ends at the end of the year. So please go to our website or my link tree. I'll have that up. But most recently, I've become an author, And I'm really excited to talk to you today about my newest picture book that came out in May, Food for the Future. And we'll be doing that in a bit. I live right outside of Boston. I have 3 kids. My oldest is actually turning 24 tomorrow. I have a 21-year-old and I have a 19-year-old. And so I empty nested for the first time. And so all of my husband and I live, just 7 miles west of Boston.
Awesome. Welcome. Welcome all. Before we dive in with hold on. So I wanted to point out some general features that Boundless Kids and Teens has before we dive into our talk with Barefoot Books. So just like you have your kids room and your teen room at your library, and those house your collections, maybe you do programming in these spaces. You usually have other interesting things going on, like displays, maybe some activities. So if you think about Boundless Kids and Teens, this is a virtual space that does all of those things. So we're looking at a screenshot of what the experience looks like for a child. You can see that there are announcements. That might be like, you can think of it physically as a bulletin board in your kids' room. There's a carousel of books here. So that's kind of like a display that might be in your physical space. And we also have the resource hub, which we're going to dive into more later. And you can also set up your own programs for your patrons in Boundless Kids and Teens. In fact, the bundle does come with programs that are turnkey. So you're just going to set your dates. You can change the text or the title or how many books someone needs to read to complete the program if you wish. Whenever we were creating the Boundless Kids and Teens bundle, it was really important to us that as we were creating it, that it be as turnkey or as customizable as you want it to be. For me at Houston Public Library, I would have definitely taken the customization route. I was always super hands-on in setting up things like the summer reading program. Hey, Grace, since you also worked in libraries, what about you? Would you be hands-on or would you have been someone that prefers a more turnkey option?
I think when I was in libraries, it would kind of depend, right? I think at one of my libraries, it's like I was doing a lot of programming. I was really busy. After that, I, had a little bit more time. I would like to have the option for both, which we do have. When you're hands-on and you're doing lots of programming during the summer, it's great to have the turnkey option, things you and I already created. But, I would have also liked to have the option to customize when I did at the time too. Yeah. And one of the ways that you can use those programs in Boundless Kids and Teen, I'll mention, is with summer reading. You can make your own, like we said, or you can use what we have already created for you so that you can just have it up and your patrons will see it. You can also tie in your virtual programming here with these programs into your physical. For example, you could have your challenge online and that's created and incorporated into your platform, but you could have somebody come into the library for a prize after they read all of these books on the challenge. If you want to use it with your summer reading theme, read, renew, repeat in 2024, we have books for that and programs for that. We've got lots of, so many books that, fit into, any program that you might be doing during the summer. And as you're planning your summer reading program, you might want to take advantage of some of the activities that we have in our resource hub that includes coloring sheets and lesson plans and discussion guides. And we have so many activities in there, can be downloaded and printed by patrons or by librarians.
That's awesome. That's a great point, Grace, about using the resource hub for in-person programming. So we're bringing that virtual and that physical in the library together, which is sometimes really hard to do in libraries. But you want your patrons to be aware that you have digital resources. And I think bringing them into your physical space and like marrying the two is a really special thing that you can do. All right, so let's get more into the resource hub later. For now, let's hear from today's featured publisher, Barefoot Books.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here, all of you. We really appreciate it. And we're excited to learn more about Barefoot Books. Can we start by having you tell us a little bit about the types of books that Barefoot Books publishes and maybe a little bit about what your niche is in the market?
Yeah, absolutely. So all of Barefoot's titles kind of check off one or more of what we call our core publishing tenets, which include global awareness, STEAM and sustainability, social emotional learning. early learning and literacy, wellness, and then of course, diversity and inclusion. And some of our titles might check off one, but very often our titles cross off a lot of them. For example, we might have a STEAM title with a story driven by a social emotional learning narrative. So there's a lot of versatility to the books, even within these parameters. But then in general, Barefoot's just known for their really vibrant, bright colors. You can spot one from across the room, as well as our initiatives, both in the content and how we publish in sustainability.
Awesome. Well, we talked a little bit earlier about how the I Read theme this year, which is one of the nationwide summer reading programs, their theme is Read, Renew, Repeat. And that fits in really well with Barefoot Books' commitment to sustainability. It's like your books were tailor-made for that particular summer reading theme. I know they weren't, but it just works together. Tell us a little bit more about that, Rachel.
Yeah, so a lot of us here at the Barefoot team really care about sustainability. As a book publisher, we try to do what we do to be eco-conscious. So a lot of our books are made from sustainably sourced paper, which includes recycled paper. We as a company are working towards having a net zero carbon footprint. So that is a goal of ours. But first and foremost, our sustainability titles. We've got a lot of books that really encourage young readers to be climate activists. We're aiming to raise the next generation of planet protectors. So you'll see there, the author, Wenjen, who's on this call, her book, Food for the Future, is one of the many sustainable and STEM titles. Yep, there she's holding it up. So books that basically encourage children to become little eco warriors. So we're very proud of that.
One of the things that we also love about Boundless Kids and Teens is the fact that we have books that in the bundle that have the multi-use and the simultaneous use lending model, which means there's no holds and there's no waiting, which is great for kids because we know they don't do really well with the concept of holds lists. So we'd love to hear a little bit more about some of your titles.
Yeah, absolutely. So like we mentioned, one of our core publishing tenets is sustainability. One of the first ones that was on that image is Planet Power. Explore the world's renewable energy. And this book goes over 6 different types of technologies that take advantage of natural and renewable resources. So it's written in a more lyrical way and has very, very lush illustrations, but it's super educational. So if you open it up, you'll note that there's different tabs that show you the theme of which spread you're on. So it might be solar power or wind power or tidal power. And you learn all about those different sorts of energies and how humans take advantage of them. And then also throughout the book, as well as in the end notes, we have a lot more information on technology for these types of energies, but also why is it important to care and really giving kids the equipment and the tools to learn more about sustainability, but also, again, teaching them why does it matter and how does it affect my future. Next up, we have the very well-known Barefoot Books Water. This is an oversized book. I love how vibrant and easy to spot it is. And it goes all into the science of really any facet of water. So from different large, well-known bodies of water around the world, but also the relationship between water and the human body, water and plant life and photosynthesis, and so on. But what's really cool about this is from 8 different authors around the world, there are different stories throughout to kind of break up all of the more science-heavy chapters that all have to do with water, so different folk tales and whatnot. And I like to joke that Barefoot really likes to put the A in STEAM when we're able to, which I think is kind of hard to find. So this has been definitely a fan favorite for people into Barefoot STEAM collection. And then also in our STEAM and sustainability, this is one of those ones that are almost cross-disciplinary from our core tenets. This is Rooftop Garden. It's a sing-along, and the way that the Barefoot sing-alongs work is in the back of the book, there's a QR code that takes you right to the Barefoot website to show a fully animated sing-along that kids can follow along with the book. And this one is called Rooftop Garden, and it follows a group of friends who live in the city who work really hard and tirelessly to create a rooftop garden. So it's just a fun, really catchy sing-along where at the end you are given a lesson on the 6 different stages of plant life, as well as an 8-step how-to guide on how to create your own garden. And then just a quick nod to the extra resources, because all of that is in the book. The extra resources that are available include a really popular activity that we call seed spheres, where kids can take this sing-along and get really hands-on with it by making these little spheres of mud and seeds that they can make their own gardens with.
Yeah, we definitely did that at the library as one of our, during COVID, like we did activity boxes and we did seed spheres, although I think we called them seed bombs.
Oh yeah.
But sphere sounds a little
We got the alliteration in there.
I like the alliteration, definitely, yeah, and it sounds a little like nicer, I think.
Less messy.
Less messy, yeah.
But
Awesome.
Yeah. And then going on to our next publishing panel.
Yeah, so global awareness, that is a big thing that we really value. So I have right here, Children of the World. This is a Barefoot Books classic. It is explores the lives and identities of kids across the globe. It shows diversity in all ways, ethnic, racial, lifestyle diversity, ability, various ways like that. And it does have a discussion guide that helps facilitate conversations about diversity and inclusion, as well as a Share Your Love DIY letter activity. So that's Children of the World. And one note that I'll make also is that here at Barefoot, over the past couple of years, we've started really valuing authentic voices. So essentially stories that are written by people with lived experience from those cultures. So an example is A Gift for Amma, one of my personal favorites because it is just so beautiful. The colors are just incredible. This one also, by the way, starred Best Books 2020 by School Library Journal. This is about a young girl who explores a South Indian market to get a gift for her mother, Amma. And the endnotes include markets from across the world. And it also includes a coloring sheet, as you'll see on the screen, to help engage more with the story. So another personal favorite is Dumpling Day. This is such a yummy book, and it is about a neighborhood that comes together for a potluck, but not just any potluck, a dumpling potluck. And each of the families brings with them a dumpling from their culture. So, for example, there's an Indian family that brings samosas, there's a Nigerian family that brings fufu, and then, of course, the endnotes, it would not be complete without recipes from each dumpling recipe. So that's very delicious. And also there's easy to substitute ingredients for if you don't live close to an international grocery store. And then lastly, we've got Run Little Chasky, also a personal favorite. I guess I'll say a personal favorite for each book, but these are actually like one of my top selected books. Run Little Chasky is a story about kindness. It centers on a young indigenous Peruvian person or child. And the author, Mariana Llanos, is very well known. She's an award-winning author. She came out with a new book recently, really great author. And then this book comes with a maze and also a coloring sheet as well. The endnotes are fact-packed about Peruvian culture and ancient Inca culture. So yeah, those are our global books. And John, do you want to share a little bit about our other books as well?
Yeah, and then I know that I went over our core publishing tenets, but I just wanted to iterate, not everything we do is solely educational. We have a lot of books that are just plain fun, maybe with a lesson interwoven. And one of the fan favorites is Jet the Cat is Not a Cat. This is a story about a cat named Jet who is told by her cat friend that you must not be a cat because you like to swim and cats don't like water. You must be a different animal, a bird. And then Jet the Cat goes through this really kind of hilarious identity crisis where she tries to try out being different animals. She tries to fly like a bird and she realizes that she can't, so she must be a toad. And then she tries to ribbit like a toad, but her voice is much too high. And then ultimately she learns that she is still a cat. She is just a cat in her own unique way, and she likes to swim. So it's just a really hilarious book. People love the character Jet the Cat, so there's a coloring sheet that kids can engage in while they're discussing what they learned or afterwards. And yeah, it's a nice story about identity and how nobody can give you your identity except for yourself. Up next, we have another one of our very famous sing-alongs or popular sing-alongs is Dump Truck Disco. It is about a group of personified construction vehicles that have the task of overnight having to create a playground. So you go through starting with the protagonist, who's called a dump truck Daisy, each truck's own responsibilities for erecting this playground. And then at the end, all these kids get to celebrate and make use of the big playground that they've just created. And what's really nice about this book is that there is disability representation within through the illustrations with the children that are playing on the playground, but also the endnotes that go into what each truck or construction vehicle's purpose is, as well as how playgrounds can be more accessible. And then one last little thing that I'd like to say is that it's just really nice to have a book about trucks with a female protagonist to show that this very polarized topic of trucks, which are normally known and falsely called boy interests, that's just not the case. We, right front and center, make the protagonist a girl. And then lastly, we have Dinosaur Rap. Speaking of very popular topics with librarians and teachers, just a big kid interest is dinosaurs. So this teaches all about dinosaurs. It's also a sing-along. And it's nice because it really fosters imagination and creativity with kids, as the book shows a dinosaur and a kid playing pretend in each spread. And the song, it's a rap song, kind of instigates the kids to mimic each dinosaur that they're learning about. So they might swish like a stegosaurus or stomp like a triceratops. And then at the very end, of course, you have that end matter on the different types of dinosaurs, as well as a quick introduction to paleontology as a field. So yeah, and I just wanted to say our sing-alongs in general, because I've shown you 3 sing-alongs so far, are very, very popular. The QR codes take you directly to Barefoot Books website, so that's that stable link that will always be ready. But we're also on YouTube, and these get millions of views on YouTube. I think our highest is a 35 million viewership for one of our sing-alongs. So they're just, kids just sit there and listen to them on repeat.
So again, like in library use, at home use.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure, you know, a kid might hear a song at story time that somebody, a children's librarian might use, and then mom and dad get to listen to it 500 more times.
Exactly.
And I love it. You know, dinosaur rap. A lot of libraries do Dino-November. We just finished November, so that's like a perfect title for there. And I just wanted to point out, you know, I love all the different types of resources that you guys have for your books. You have coloring sheets, but you also have different fun activities. I can totally see a library that has a kitchen on site, having fun with dumpling day and trying out some of those dumpling recipes. If that is happening at your library, people, let me know, because I want to come and eat all your dumplings. Oh, not all of them, just, you know, I would sample an appropriate number. So for Barefoot Books, the resources that you guys have produced, what is your thinking behind them? And how do you hope patrons and librarians engage with them?
Yeah, so I think one thing that's really cool is there's a huge spectrum of how involved somebody would have to or want to be with each activity. So we have some more busy work ones that kids can engage in, like the coloring sheets and the crosswords. And I could totally see for any sort of in-library programming. Let's say you have a kids book club. It's so hard to get a group of kids to sit down and actually talk about a picture book. So having these coloring sheets is a great way to keep them engaged in what they're talking about. But then also we get into more involved activities, like full discussion guides, full activity kits, some of them that are really hands-on and infinitely expandable, like the seed spheres one that I mentioned. So it's, yeah, they're really for all purposes, both in library and at home, and they can be big or small. And then I think it's also important to mention that just about all of our teachers' resources were created by experts in education. So you know that there is value to each and every one of them. If you're a librarian doing a lesson or a program, you can pick up this lesson and know that it will work.
You feel good about it.
Right.
Tested.
That's fantastic. And I feel like that's really helpful, for parents who might have younger kids. There's coloring sheets. For parents who are maybe homeschooling, you have those more in-depth discussions. You really kind of run the gamut, which is really, really helpful. So nice to have a range of activities for everybody.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have our special guest, our author. Thank you so much for joining us, Mia. We really appreciate you being here. And Rachel's and Mia are going to tell us a little bit about Mia's book.
Yeah, I'm going to let Mia do most of the talking, but I'll just intro her. We have her book here, Food for the Future, Sustainable Farms Around the World. This book is very exciting. We published it kind of recently, and it also comes with a great educational resource. But yeah, Mia Wenjen, if you want to take it away, talk a bit about your book.
Sure.
About inspiration.
So I'm going to start with a story behind the story. And I think every author, we have a lot of stories about rejection. So this story also started with a rejection. And in this case, I had submitted a manuscript to Barefoot Books about good luck symbols around the world. And the editor, Rachel, was like, oh, I really liked it and I wanted to acquire it, but sales and marketing said no. And so she said, why don't we meet? Because we liked the format, which was like rhyming couplets with end matter. And let's just kick the tires and see if we can come up, with different ideas. So I was like, great, yes, love to meet. So we got on a Zoom, and I, as a children's book blogger who lives, 20 minutes from Barefoot Books, like I had covered their books for a decade. Like I've been to 3 of their headquarters. I go to all their events. And so I knew that I had just reviewed like the books that I think John had presented, the sustainability, the water. I had the water, the energy. I had just reviewed it. So I was like, I knew they liked sustainability. And so I had some sustainability ideas in my head. But before I threw out the idea, I was like, wait, can I actually write this? And so I was thinking about farms, but literally before I said it, I was like racing through my head, okay, like what would that mean? And so the first farm that came to my head was an oyster farm, because my son, when he turned 14, he loves seafood. He loves oysters on the half shell. He eats anything raw. And so for his birthday, we took him to this now defunct oyster restaurant. And I noticed like on the wall, it said oyster tours available. So I was like, oh, I'm all about the education. I'll book a tour for his birthday and it will be great. And so it turned out like it was completely booked. So I had to wait a year. And then the following year, like I signed up instead of 2 months before summer, like 6 months. And we got in and we took this incredible tour in Duxbury and learned all about how they literally get the oysters to spawn. And then they put them in various tanks, and the tanks had all these different colors. And then they go out into an estuary, and then they go out to sea. And then we went out in a boat, and they gave us our own shucking knife, and we were allowed to eat as many oysters as we could shuck. And like that was happening. And then you eat it, and then you throw the shell into the water because it's sustainable. And so I was like, oyster farm, okay, 1. And that became this page here. And we set the oyster farm, not in Duxbury, but we set it in Australia. So I was like, okay, but I probably need more. So then the second one that came to mind was we had taken a family vacation on the island of Kauai. And one thing that we like to do is we like to go to farmers markets. Like we literally would drive every day to farmers market, try to find exotic fruit, just see what the wares, talk to the people. By the end of our trip, some of the vendors were like, oh, hey, we saw you. We've seen you 3 times now in 3 different cities. But we had passed this, like we were driving up to Hanapepe, which is, very famous for, Lilo and Stitch. We had passed this like it's sort of like rust colored sand with like sparkling white, salt. And I was like, what is that? And my friend who lived in Kauai said, oh, that's a salt pond. And I was like, oh my God, can we take a visit? Can we do a tour? And she's like, no, this is like, you have to be Native Hawaiian. These salt ponds are passed from one generation to another, and like, no tours available. But I was just like, yeah, it was visually so stunning that, it had to be included. But then when I told my friend, like after I told my friend, like, oh my God, I'm writing a book, and remember that salt farm we passed, like it's going to be included. And she said, when I lived in Kauai, my neighbor is a Native Hawaiian, and her family has one of these salt ponds. And she gave me this giant bag of salt, because the thing is, the salt is not sold commercially. And it's used for cooking, but it's also used for ceremonial purposes. So like you might sprinkle, a bit of salt over a new home or a new outrigger canoe, or like a new tool. And in my case, and so anyway, so she said, I'll give you some. So she sent me some of her salt, and maybe you can see it. It is, it has a kind of a large crystal, and it has a slight sheen, because what they do is, it is pretty sparkling white, but they mix a tiny bit of the earth into the salt. But it's not just any earth. It's literally from a secret place in the mountains, like that we don't know about. And it's just a tiny amount, but that amount adds, like, not just like, you know what I mean? Like the good stuff, but it does actually add minerals and other, like, healthy things. But I used it like when my first author copies arrived, I did my unboxing, and like I did a little sprinkle, and I was like, sending this book out into the world. Please bless it with, the Hawaiian, the Hawaiian, spiritual good energy. And then another farm like came to my mind, and it was just from social media, because I was just, like looking at things, and all of a sudden I saw this, like, it was like crop circles, like in a desert. And I was like, wait, what is that? And so it so it's this page here. And this is it, to me, it was like, is it crop circles? Is it aliens? What is it? Is it indigenous? Is it ancient, practice? But no, this is so interesting. Came out of COVID. So during COVID-19, Senegal imported a great deal of its food and medicine. Like it wasn't like self-sustaining. But now with COVID, they had to shut the borders because they didn't want the COVID to spread. And then all of a sudden they were like, wait, we need more. We need to grow our own food and even herbs for our own medicine. And so they took all these ideas, like what can we do, because they're in the middle of sort of where the Sahara meets the savannah, and it's they're basically in the area where they're trying to keep the Sahara Desert from encroaching and taking over. And so one of their ideas was a circular farm, which I think you can see better here. And the idea is that when you plant in circles, the roots all go to the center, so it uses less water, and then you can grow like kind of like a tree break around it. So then there's less wind, there's less just I guess like evaporation, and when they did this, it really depended on the commitment of the individual community. But when the community was committed and took care of the garden, it was very successful. And it's actually part of this green belt movement. So Africa, there's like a swath of Africa down the middle. They're literally trying to plant a green, greenery to have a stopgap against that desert. And so this is one of the ideas that is that actually works, that they're trying to do now on a larger scale. And I thought that was so fascinating, because sometimes it looks like it's like an ancient, and it's like, no, it's like a modern idea. And then the last one, before I was like ready to like blurt out sustainable farms, was so what happened. So another idea was my own family background. So my Japanese side is from Hiroshima, and my mother had always talked about, my parents grew up in this beautiful place. We had terraced rice gardens, like rice fields, and it's spectacular. And I was like, your kids are like, yeah, maybe, but then I actually went like in the 90s, and it was the most beautiful, mountainous green, terrace garden. And so we did, we didn't set it in Japan, but it got moved to Chile. And so then when I blurted it out, Lisa was like, I love that idea. That's a great idea. And so then I had to go to work. But when I knew that they had worked thinking about this illustrator, Robert Sehang, who is half Thai, half Mexican, but lives in the UK, it turns out that his family in Mexico had a mushroom farm. What are the chances, right? And so of course we had to have a mushroom farm set in Mexico. And so I followed the same, two couplet and kind of extensive back matter, because I feel like for me as a mom and as a reader and as a children's book blogger, like end matter to me is like, it's like giving me a free education. And so I talk about what sustainability farming is and what is food justice. And there's like a beautiful map to show you all the different farms. And then, probably so I gave this book to my guy at my local post office, and he has like a 4-year-old and like a 7-year-old. So I give him all my books, and then he'll tell me like, oh, what his kids thought. And he was like, you know what? Both kids liked it, but my older son, he really liked the back matter. He thought it was really interesting. Whereas the daughter, she focused more on the picture book front part. And so I would say the end matter was, I give Lisa so much credit, my editor, because I usually give like too much information at like not the right level. And so it took a few tries, but she figured out how to give like these like little nuggets about like, where does it come from? How does it work? Why is this farm sustainable? And like kind of like a super fun fact. And so we have, each farm and Barefoot Books, they just make everything so beautiful. Every page, every illustration. And then we worked together, and we just released the discussion and activity guide. And I believe it's going to be linked to your portal as well. So I'm excited about that. And so the discussion guide is just, if you do a book club or if you're a teacher, how to talk about, this book or just like, planting a garden and sustainability. But then we have all kinds of activities where you don't actually have to have a plot of land or a garden. You can do it, on a windowsill in a paper cup, or you can do it, like a potato in a jar. My personal favorite, because sometimes like my husband's Korean, so we always need so many green onions, is you just take the bottom of the green onion and you stick it in, and then magic, new green onions. And also another book blogger gave me like what she did to make compost before they had a yard. So it's almost like a blender compost. So anyone can do that. And then of course, we always think about the pollinators are so important for any kind of garden. So there's a discussion guide and, more about the honeybees. And I personally give away like a little seed pack to anyone. And if people want to email me, I will send them out. And my seed pack has milkweed seeds. So milkweed seeds for the monarch butterflies. And I also just like that you don't have, like, it's the same thing. You don't have to have a garden. You can just throw it to the wind, or you can drop it in an empty lot, or like in front of a school, or anywhere. You don't have to water it. You don't have to think about it. But, we're helping the monarch butterflies. We're part of this whole sustainability gardening, cycle and circle. And it's just, it doesn't have to be like, I have to have a plot of land, and I have to, you know what I mean? Like this big thing or anything that's expensive, or it's to make it accessible to everybody. So thank you so much for having me. And Barefoot food for the future. I'm so like excited to announce it was just picked for Chicago's best of the best. So I think that's the first library list I've ever been on. I my first starred review ever was also for this book, and it's School Library Journal. And Junior Library Guild awarded it a gold selection, also my first time ever. And so just so like literally over the moon about all these things. So
It's awesome, Mia. The salt worked from Hawaii.
right.
Yeah.
You know, like native Hawaiian gods, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all that. Like, that was really interesting hearing about your process. And it's interesting too how, different farm techniques, I guess, are not necessarily like isolated to just one specific place. So you were able to kind of reset things just to make it a little more global. So I think that was really interesting. Love all the activities, different types of activities, got the discussion, so words and then hands-on types of activities. Love that. So I want to thank right now Rachel and John and Mia for taking the time to be here with us. And we'll just do a quick pause here in case anybody has any questions for the Barefoot Books team. You can just put them in the chat if you have a question. But I just want to make sure, people had an opportunity to ask. Looks like, let's see. Annika shared free milkweed for schools and nonprofits link. So that's cool too. So you don't have to all go to Mia.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, because it can be pricey to buy your milk.
Thank
Any
you.
questions? If you have them, you just throw them up in the chat. Looks like nobody's really typing, so we're just going to go ahead and move on. So thanks again to Rachel, John, and Mia. And I thought now we'd also share a couple more resources that can be found in the Resource Hub. I'll share the screen again, and Grace, I'll let you start.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much again, Rachel, John, and Mia. So lovely to have you. One of the resources that I really love and I would use if I were still in public libraries is it ties in with the book Unicorn and Horse by David Miles. And this worksheet allows parents and caregivers or teachers or homeschool groups to explore themes that have to do with social emotional learning and kind of thinking about jealousy, which is an emotion that's hard to talk about and is really important to talk about with kids. So this worksheet kind of gives a chance, whether or not you fill out this worksheet with your child. I also think it's great to just read these, and maybe it's something you could talk about at the end of the story. If you don't feel like doing the worksheet, you still have all of these questions that are there for you to consider. So this allows ask questions for kids to kind of think about, well, how would you feel if you were in this book and if you were this character and this happened to you? And I just think that's fantastic because it extends that learning into a conversation, which we know is a really great way that kids learn. Maybe they watch something in a show or maybe they read a book, but having those conversations about whatever they learned about during that time, it extends the learning and it deepens the learning. And this would be great for a parent or caregiver or a lesson plan for a teacher. So that's one of my favorites.
Or even questions at the end of story time, right?
Yes, that's
like as you're reading, even. Yeah,
totally. That would be a great activity afterwards. Yeah.
All right. So we have talked a lot about kids stuff today, but let's not forget that it's Boundless Kids and Teens. So I wanted to share one of the resources that are for teens. So if you at the library have ever done a teen book club, you know how hard it can be to find the time to read the entire book and then figure out questions. So if you are a librarian and you pick one of the books from the Boundless Kids and Teens bundle, number one, it's perfect for book clubs because you don't have to buy a bunch of extra copies of the book. Everyone can access it at the same time. Grace mentioned it earlier. It's MUPO use, multi-user, simultaneous use. It's not really a model that we've seen a lot in ebook lending. So that's a really wonderful feature of the Boundless Kids and Teens bundle. And so we have this book here. We have Burn Down, Rise Up. It won the Pura Belle Prey Award. And there's a discussion guide right there in Boundless Kids and Teens. So if you, librarian, didn't have time to actually read the book, you've got these questions, they're done for you. You can run the book club without having had read the book. Of course you should read the book, but it's hard to find time sometimes. And I think this is just really the perfect synergy between in-house programming and using the virtual resources that are available in Boundless Kids and Teens.
Yeah. And speaking of that as well, I would be completely remiss if I didn't point out that many of our Barefoot Books titles that are included as multi-user simultaneous use ebooks in Boundless Kids and Teens are also part of our physical book giveaway summer reading program that we do, where you can purchase books to give away to your patrons when they finish summer reading, or maybe when they start summer reading, you give away the book. However you use it. These are physical books that you can give away to your patrons. So you have this really great cross physical and digital divide here, where you have patrons that maybe have read the book virtually in Boundless Kids and Teen, and they also can have it as a prize for their home library in physical format. Or if you wanted to just run a book club where you give away books to all the participants, you can also use our summer reading prize giveaway list for that as well. So if you have folks that can't make it to the library to pick up a physical version, or whether or not whatever way, you're going, you have physical and you have digital options for these titles.
Yes, and that reminds me too, and John mentioned it a little bit earlier too. But one of the programs that I did at Houston Public when COVID happened, we did a few virtual book clubs because we weren't doing in-person programming. One of them was based on the Texas 2x2 reading list, which, if you're not familiar with the Texas 2x2 list, it's a list that's for children age 2 up through grade 2. But we kept the book club for ages 4 to 8 just to narrow that range a little bit. So we did buy the book and we gave it to kids that registered for the book club to keep, because, we're all about having books in the home. It's such an important thing. So that was something that we did. And John alluded to this, but the thing about doing a book club for littles is that there's not always going to be a ton of actual book discussion going on. So it's always good to have an activity to go along with your book. And if you are doing an in-person book club, you can take one of the titles that's available from the summer reading list, like Rooftop Garden, do the book club, do the Seed Spheres activity that's right there. So all you have to do is get the materials ready, like the recipe on how to make them, and everything is there for you. It's vetted. You can feel confident that this activity is going to work. So that's a great thing. It saves you a little bit of time and legwork.
And you have a seed source now. Now you have that free seed source.
That's right. And you have a seed source from Mia.
Those seed spheres.
There you go.
So much synergy. Boundless Kids and Teens, in-library programming, summer reading. There's just a lot of different ways to interact with all the fantastic books that Barefoot has to offer. I think we're going to wrap up around here. If you'd like more information about Boundless Kids and Teens, you have questions about Barefoot Books, you want to talk about summer reading, prize book giveaways, just reach out to Sarah or I, or your sales rep. Either way, I'll put our emails in the chat as well if anyone wants to copy and paste them. And thank you all so much for joining us today. I think last thing is to just see if there's any Q&A that we should answer. Okay, maybe not. Maybe everybody's just waiting to email us.
Maybe. Well, just pointing out again that Annika put in the chat the link to getting free milkweed seeds for schools and nonprofits. So that's another great resource for seeds, for your seed spheres, or for your programming. Yeah. And okay, I guess we will wrap it up. I'm not seeing a lot of questions coming in. So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for all of our guests, Mia, Rachel, John. Thanks, Grace, for joining me today too. And thanks all of you out there. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
having us. Have a
Thank
great
you.
day.
Thank you.